Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of World Talks here on TVP World. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee. Please join me and my guest on this next interview. The battle for Pokrovsk, a critical logistic hub in eastern Ukraine, intensifies as Russian forces close in. Meanwhile, Ukraine's high-risk incursion into Russia's Kursk region raises questions about Kyiv's strategic choices. As Russian troops press their advantage near Pokrovsk, Ukraine faces the stark possibility of losing a vital stronghold. Critics argue that the Kursk operation may have left key Ukrainian positions vulnerable, potentially endangering the broader war effort. Joining us today on TVP World to discuss these developments is Rostyslav Khotin, senior editor at Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty's Ukrainian service. Hello, sir, and welcome to TVP World.
Hello.
So we are looking down a high-stakes geopolitical chess game right now, and if you can first help us understand how critical is Pokrovsk actually to Ukraine's defense strategy in the eastern part of the country?
Yeah, it's important center. It's a region, a district center in the Donetsk region of Ukraine, in eastern Ukraine. It's important for both politically and from transport and military point of view. It's a transport hub, but we have to remember that Ukraine cannot use rail transport in the east because it's quite dangerous. So all supplies, military supplies, are done on land rather than actually by railway. Secondly, the importance of Pokrovsk is political because it kind of the question marks are always there whether it was worth going into Kursk region of Russian Federation and losing Pokrovsk. So we'll see. Russian President Vladimir Putin boasted earlier this week that Russian troops are advancing in the near Pokrovsk in the Donbas area in eastern Ukraine with a speed of not a couple hundred meters a day, but with a speed of several kilometers a day. We'll see. Ukrainian troops avoided encircling by Russians about 10 days ago. Now there are a lot of speculation where there might be another cold drone, another attempt to encircle Ukrainian troops. We'll see. But we also should remember that Pokrovsk is not like a regular town in eastern Ukraine. The fate of Pokrovsk will be the same as the fate of Mariupol, Bakhmut, Avdiivka. It already almost completely destroyed and will be destroyed entirely. Russians will not stop at anything to destroy this town. People have been evacuated, or the evacuation is ongoing of the Ukrainian civilians from Pokrovsk and Pokrovsk district. We'll see. Situation is critical, but let's not exaggerate the strategic importance of Pokrovsk. It's yet another town which will fall to Russian hands probably. We'll see. But Ukrainians are defending so far Pokrovsk despite Russian territorial gains in the area. Russian strategic aim remains the same: to advance to the administrative border of Donetsk and Luhansk region by the end of this year. That remains the same.
All right, so like you mentioned earlier, there's a big debate whether or not it is worth it to trade some of the Ukrainian land for some of the regions in Russia's Kursk region. So what are the stronger arguments for both sides of this? People who are saying that maybe this incursion is a good thing, people who are saying that maybe more resources should be dedicated to defending Ukraine's eastern region.
The questions have been asked, and there is this big question mark up in the air in Zelensky's mind, in the mind of Alexander Syrsky, General Syrsky, the commander of Ukrainian armed forces, and other top generals, whether it was worth going into Kursk. But the pluses overwhelmingly minuses of the Kursk operation. First of all, Ukrainians didn't have positive news from battlefields for almost a year and a half, and then the sudden attack, the sudden incursion into Kursk region, it gave new dynamics to Ukrainian operations. It gave moral boost to Ukrainian armed forces and wider Ukrainian society. Ukrainians proved they are capable of advancing despite Russian attempts to stop them. It gave also sent question marks to why the Russian society, whether Putin is able to defend the very Russia, not just occupied Ukrainian territories, but the very Russian Federation is under threat, under attack. So it gives Putin's approval ratings, political approval ratings, are down significantly now within Russian Federation, in the eyes of wider Russian society. Also, Ukraine created a zone of security zone, buffer zone around Sumy region, Kharkiv region. It prevented Russian incursion into Sumy region in the northeast, in the Chernihiv region in the north of Ukraine. It gave Ukrainians additional trump cards for future peace negotiations with Russia, possibly with international participation. So there are already advantages. It also keeps this kind of strategic unpredictability for Russia. Russia doesn't know what Ukraine will do next, whether Ukraine will advance to the regional center, the city of Kursk, whether Ukrainians are going to take Kursk, a nuclear power station, nuclear power plant in Kurchatov, in Kursk region. They don't know. So there are a lot of strategic uncertainties for the Russians. Also, it gives Ukraine possibility to trade territories in the future after peace talks. Maybe Ukraine will exchange Kursk region or controlled parts of Kursk region for Donbass. We'll see. What we know now that Ukrainians control more than 1,300 square kilometers in the Russian Kursk region, more than 100 settlements, small towns and villages, and at least 600 Russian soldiers have been taken prisoners of war, and they are to be exchanged for Ukrainian prisoners of war, which are in Russian captivities. So there are already a lot of advantages, a lot of positive implications of this Kursk incursion, of this Kursk operation, which, just to remind you, was started on the 6th of August last month.
Right, like you mentioned, there's a lot of dynamics going on here, and it's not just land for land, but there's also the political implications, prisoner of war, the future aspect of potential ceasefire, peace talk, trades, and stuff like that. And there's also one part of the dynamic I would like to pick your brains on, which is the international response. Because do you think this is also something that Ukraine is demonstrating to the West of its own capabilities, and maybe bolster more support and or like giving morale boost somewhat to the countries that are still considering kind of supporting Ukraine?
Yes, absolutely. Ukrainians proved that they are capable, of advances. They're capable to push Russians back, even on the territory of Russian Federation. The sheer sudden, the immediate, unexpected nature of this Kursk operation also, took by surprise Russians and the international community. Also, it gave yet another argument for the West to support Ukraine, because Ukrainian armed forces are capable of military operations on the territory of Russian Federation. Also, it there is yet another implication, another factor here in play, that Ukrainians crossed the red line, which was drawn by the Kremlin, by President Putin of Russian Federation, that Ukrainians should not enter Russian territory per se, the territory of Russian Federation. And Ukrainians have done precisely that, crossing yet another red line drawn before by Russian leadership. So there is this argument that the West should support Ukraine even more actively, more massively, because Ukrainians are capable of conducting military operation on the territory of the very Russian Federation. And also Ukrainians are now asking to be allowed to strike military targets on the especially military airfields on the Russian territory with weapons supplied by Western countries. So far, there is this kind of uncertainty whether the West should agree or not, but Ukrainians are insisting, President Zelensky insists that Ukrainians should have this right to strike especially airfields, on the Russian territory with Western supplied weapons. Because over the past several days, Russia was able to hit civilian targets, apartment blocks, shopping malls, other civilian infrastructure, killing a lot of people, civilians, Ukrainian civilians, and wounding, injuring even more in the cities of Zaporizhia, Dnipro, Kharkiv, and others, like even Kyiv. But the argument is in the air that Ukrainians should target Russian airplanes when they are grounded on the airfields and not wait for them to go to take off up in the air with guided bombs and missiles.
Right.
Ukrainians should be doing preventive measures targeting Russian airfields with aircraft standing on them.
Right, so it does seem like there's a lot of moving pieces in this whole debate. And of course, like you mentioned, we do have to wait and see how the situation unfolds and develop. Meanwhile, thank you so much for your input and insight. Really appreciate it. Thanks for being with us on TVP World.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching this edition of World Talks. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.